Well, if Labour hasn't peed you off yet, just wait until you hear this. Let's begin. Now, of course, it's no secret that Keir Starmer appears to love the EU. I mean, let's face it, when the guy was Brexit Secretary, he tried to overturn the biggest democratic vote in history, no doubt, by campaigning for a second vote, because I'm guessing he just didn't agree with the first answer. But to reassure us all that he is a changed man, I'm guessing, in the run-up to the election, he was saying something like, don't worry about that now, that's all in the past, we will not be going back to the EU, we will not be joining the single market, and we will not be entering the customs union. But of course it seems we might actually have to take that with a humongous piece of salt. I say that because if this article's anything to go by, it seems like our re-entry via the back door, let's just say, has got a lot more likely, because whilst admittedly I could be wrong, I've got a feeling that Keir Starmer is very experienced in being re-entered via the back door. But anyway, the article says, outrage as Labour make crazy move in a plot to bring the UK closer to the EU. So just what's going on then? How are they going to sneak this past us? Well, one of the first things you have to do in any negotiation is obviously suss out the other person, isn't it? Or the company or organisation or whatever. But it seems like he's going to make that much harder for us to do, because it says the government has sparked fury with the decision to abolish a key scrutinising MP Select Committee on the European Union affairs, despite renegotiation plans. I mean, that's just ludicrous, isn't it? If anything, in my opinion, is like raising a giant white flag and saying, yes, we want to join, take anything you want. Because if we haven't got the full facts ahead of us and what the European Union is doing and all things like that, surely we could just be walking around blindfold, couldn't we, eh? But they don't want you to worry about that, do they? It says that Leader of the House of Commons, Lucy Powell, has revealed plans for a major shake-up on the MP Select Committee system this morning, including a complete reshuffle of the chairmanships. However, the plans reveal that the EU Scrutiny Committee will be axed, and the committee was established, though, long before Brexit in 2010 and was chaired by Tory grandee Sir Bill Cash for its entire 14-year existence prior to him standing down at the election. And their job was quite an important one, really, because it says its job was to monitor any issues of legal or political importance of any new EU legislation and policy and assess their impact on the UK. And in recent years, this played an important role in scrutinising the EU withdrawal agreement and a new trade deal with the EU and Northern Ireland Protocol. Which just makes me wonder, if we never had that committee, what other stuff could the EU have snuck past us in the negotiation process? And from what I remember, I'm pretty sure it actually brought several things to our attention, which then probably got reworked, eh? Despite, though, the government now moving to reopen the Brexit talks altogether and renegotiate the UK's relationship with the continent, Miss Powell moved to abolish the committee entirely, and reacting to the news, a former Tory MP, member of the bodies, David Jones, told the Express that he has no doubt that Foreign Secretary David Lammy did not want close scrutiny of the government's EU policy. Well, no doubt, of course, that would have more than likely made re-entry via the back door much more harder, even with any experience these guys may have, eh? And Mr Jones said the committee under the chairmanship of Sir Bill did excellent work and holding the last Conservative government to account on EU-related matters. It was apparently especially effective on the issue of the Westminster Framework, I'm guessing he means the Windsor Framework, drawing attention to the extent to which Northern Ireland was being drawn into the orbit of Brussels. But unfortunately, of course, Rishi just sort of steamrolled that through, if I remember rightly, and that kind has actually shackled us to the EU via the back door of Northern Ireland itself. Because surely that would make it much more harder to diverge too much, because let's say, for example, we dropped VAT to 10%, but we couldn't do that in Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland would then kick up a fuss, quite understandably, of course. So the likelihood of us actually doing something like that would be very, very minimal indeed, even though, of course, Brexit has given us the freedoms to do that, or something like that, eh? The strange thing is, though, it says that David Lammy was a member of the committee, but apparently rarely turned up, no doubt because he disapproved of close scrutiny of an organisation which he believes the UK should be drawn closer. I'm guessing he was more than likely there as a plant. Obviously, I could be wrong, but it does make me wonder why he'd actually want to be there in the first place if he loved the EU so much, eh? And unfortunately, it does seem that this has bit us in the bum a bit, really, because he obviously knows, being there, I'm guessing at least 1 or 2 times, how much scrutiny they would look through any potential deal with the EU. Something which I'm guessing he will not be happy about. A Conservative at the ERG source who worked with Sir Bill while he headed up the committee said it had amassed an expertise of institutional memory far in excess of the FCDO, which made It the terror of all unprepared ministers, apparently. And quite uniquely in Commons committees, it also had a pro-Brexit majority, something which unfortunately has all but disappeared in the House of Commons. I'm guessing, if anything, I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that Nigel Farage, Reform's MPs and maybe one or two others are probably the only Brexiteers left. And that in itself is actually quite worrying, to be honest, isn't it? Tory MP, though, Greg Smith, he described the announcement by Labour as a crazy move, which takes away all realistic and expert parliamentary scrutiny on the ongoing review of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Gibraltar negotiations, EU security and defence policy, retained EU law, and of course, the Windsor Framework. And he said it's as if Labour want to hide any talk of the EU where many issues still remain. I personally think he's hit the nail right on the head there, hasn't he? They don't actually want us seeing how quickly or slowly they could potentially move us closer bit by bit, ever so slightly, until we're back again in the EU. In all but name, of course, eh? And hopefully what I'm about to tell you surely shows how important this committee is, because it says that in 2016, then Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond called Sir Bill Cash a total shit after the committee published a secret Brussels legal report on the EU deal negotiated by David Cameron, despite hopes to keep it under wraps. So there you go, that just says it all, doesn't it? They brought what the government didn't want us to know out into the public, and that is a massive reason why I think it should stay, especially as Labourists, face it, just want to get us ever closer to the EU. And an MP, though, totally expressed that Sir Bill being called a total shit by Mr Hammond was the committee's finest hour. Hooray! Because that surely shows that they were basically upsetting all the right people, doesn't it, eh?